Welcome, everyone, to the Super Connector, where we talk about all things related to the world of influence. Everything from sales to leadership, networking, personal branding, and my personal favorite, how to win friends and influence people. Today, we have a special guest, Daniel Smyth. Daniel is a high-ticket closer and sales coach. He hit his highest earning month of $45,000 in commission within only 1 year as a high-ticket sales professional. He's coached over 100 students in his high-ticket sales mastermind program called Born to Close. You can access his sales academy, all his social media profiles, and his YouTube channel with lots of long-form content in the comment section down below. Daniel, so great to have you here. This is my first in-person podcast. How you doing, man?
I'm all good, mate.
Good,
Happy to be here.
good. Awesome. Yeah, so I saw you online. You were at the same boxing gym as me, and I thought, what the heck is going on? Who is he?
Yeah.
Because you put out a ton of content,
Yeah.
a ton of short form content, which I do really enjoy, by the way. It's great. You got great editors too, right?
Yeah.
And so I just decided to reach out to you. I mean, in high ticket sales, sales bros are everywhere. And I think the city we live in, Asuncion, is just, there's so many people here in Paraguay, right? So yeah, let's just get started. Do you want to just tell people a little bit about yourself first?
For sure. So I got into the high ticket sales world January 2024, and it was one of the fastest growth I think that a lot of people seen, as I was taking my craft very seriously. I was studying 12 to 14 hours a day. Within 0 to 4 months, I got to 10K a month commissions, 0 to 6 months, 20K a month, and then by the end of the year, I hit 45K a month.
How long did it take for that euphoria to wear off when you hit that 45K?
To be honest, my goals are very big. So I want to be multi-millionaire. So the 45K, I have more of an athlete's mentality when it comes to it. Like, that's what I was supposed to do.
Yeah.
So like, I don't think Kobe Bryant or Michael Jordan, I don't think they get super excited when they win a championship. Of course, it's like, cool, I won the championship, but that's what I came to do. So
yeah,
I don't really get too excited or in my head about it.
Well, I noticed you said that's what, I don't know if you said that was what you were meant to do, but that's what you came to do. Do you feel as if there's a role of destiny in this, or at least you create your own destiny and follow it?
I feel like I create my own destiny and follow it more so.
Yeah.
But when I say that's what I came to do, when I got into the high ticket sales world and I seen what other people were doing, I instantly had no doubts and was like, well, that's what I'm coming to replicate and achieve as well. So when I say that's what I came to do, it's because that was my intention all along. And I literally had on my whiteboard in my bedroom $40,000 a month in front of me every single day. So that was the number plan for 2024.
It probably says 10 million now, 10 million a month now, doesn't it?
Yes.
I want to see that whiteboard. It's got all your plans on it.
Yeah.
It's got all the inside info for how to be a millionaire.
Yeah.
All right. I can tell just from talking to you for 5 minutes that you have the mindset of a successful and ambitious person. And it's a different mindset than most people have. And the reason I can tell is because of the way you speak. You speak as if it's going to happen. You know that you have the discipline, the work ethic. It's very similar to myself. I know that. How did you develop that?
Right at the beginning. So when I was very young, my family is quite a lower class family from England.
Yeah.
And I was the only kid out of all of my cousins, siblings, relatives who did well in school. So from around 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, all of my family were always saying, like, Daniel's going to be successful. Daniel's going to be successful. He's going to be the one who makes it. So I think that their confidence in me from a young age, spilled into me, because obviously that's conditioning period.
Yeah.
So if that's all I was hearing around me, that's obviously bled out to me throughout my whole life. And then when I was getting a bit older, 13, 14 years old, and taking basketball, sports, gym more seriously, I would just start challenging myself to do a lot of hard things, and not just why not? I would be to my mum, going on a run at 2 a.m. She's like, why? Well, I just want to go on a run.
Yeah.
Stuff like this where I'm just doing things that I know no one else is willing to do, just to prove to myself I am who I am. I am who I say I am. Sorry, if that makes sense.
It does make sense.
Because I think personally, confidence comes from consistency, like, and not like more so consistency with who you tell yourself you are, and do your actions and behaviors align with that? And if they do, you'll become a confident person.
Yeah. And I understand what you mean about that discipline and consistency, because any high-powered sales professional needs to have that. What they do outside of their job is just as important as what they do inside of their job.
Yep.
They have to practice what they preach.
Yep.
So what are some things that you do outside of your job right now that keeps you focused when you're coaching your students and when you're selling?
It's funny you bring this up, because I spoke to this with a student today, and the biggest thing I do is I analyze the 4 big pillars of like someone's life, which is health, wealth, relationships, and spirituality.
Yeah.
So I'm very in touch with making sure I'm always trying to put my focus on all of these day to day. So when it comes to health, am I eating right? Am I going to the gym? Am I boxing? All of these things. Like, I know I'm being congruent with the man I know I'm going to be every single day in my health aspects. When it comes to wealth, am I actually pushing the needle forward with content or coaching people, taking sales calls? Am I consistently doing those things that's going to lead me to becoming wealthy? Yes.
Yeah.
Relationships. When I go out with partners and things, am I doing it to like mess around and be a fucking idiot? Or am I going out there to genuinely find a long-term partner and treat them right and, you know, have foundations to be the type of man who can provide for them, have kids with them, all these things? Yes, I'm doing that. When it comes to spirituality, am I constantly analyzing my beliefs, my behaviors? Am I analyzing the way I view the world consistently? Yes, I do that. So my main point is I focus on health, wealth, relationships, and spirituality, and analyze and feedback on those things consistently. Don't just like do them, like actually feedback and try and improve them over and over again.
It's interesting because how you were explaining that, it sounds to me, the one word I think of when you explain that is balance.
Yeah.
So many high-ticket sales professionals, when they first come in, oftentimes they came from a 9 to 5. It could be in corporate, could have been from wherever. Maybe it was from sales, maybe it wasn't. But they have a lot of difficulty with instability. And the instability from jumping offer to offer or having multiple offers at the same time, they find it really jarring. How would you recommend a new high-ticket sales professional to navigate that?
Stability in the sales world or in life?
In the sales world first.
Okay. So stability in the sales world, I think a big thing is getting very clear on what you want and then only going to things that align with that.
Yeah.
So, for example, I get a lot of people who say, my goal is to land an offer.
Yeah.
And they will take the first offer that comes across their table, even if it doesn't align with their income goals, their values, and things like this, meaning that when they join, it's an inevitable, I'm going to leave soon. And it just wastes a bunch of time because they couldn't have waited an extra week to actually wait for the right thing to come across their table.
Yeah.
So if I was to like use that as an analogy for life, someone who doesn't pick a partner who aligns with their values and long-term vision will end up breaking up with that person and have to find someone new later.
Yeah.
So to overcome the stability, I think that the big key is getting very clear on what you want and not settling for anything less than that.
How do you help one of your students find out what they truly want?
When it comes to an offer or their goals?
Or their goals?
Their goals. When it comes to my students, I like to unpack, obviously, their big why behind what they're doing, and that can vary all the time. You know,
Yeah.
as you know, like we've all got very, very different whys.
Yeah.
And once we understand what they want at like a tangible level, we can reverse engineer. Sorry. Once we understand what they want in terms of their why, we can reverse engineer what tangibles need to be met to get that.
Yeah.
You know, and once you find that, then we can find the offer that matches that. And that's probably the most important thing, in my opinion.
Yeah. And throughout your coaching experience, you've coached over 100 students. I'm sure much of it was group coaching, and I'm sure much of it was one-on-one.
Yes.
What's the biggest difference you've noticed between a mediocre and an exceptional high-ticket sales closer?
I think the biggest thing is what we literally just spoke about, which is having balance in all 4 of those other areas besides sales training. Because a lot of people who I coach actually have already done 3 or 4 other programs.
Really?
And and it's like I'm doing the patchwork, and a lot of my program is focused on the internal world. It's not really a lot of sales training as well, but I mainly want people to come to me to get rid of their limiting beliefs and walk away with the confidence to do whatever they want in life, not just in sales. That's my big goal with my program. And the ones who get more success and more quick success is always the ones who are more aligned with those 4 pillars of health, wealth, relationships, and spirituality. And don't just put their focus on sales training. I think you've got to be a good person before you become a good salesperson.
So what are the difficulties that they faced with those previous schools? Because if they're jumping from school to school, obviously they're not working. So what are the problems with other schools out there? They're not teaching what you are.
Personally, I don't think there's a problem with the sales education that a lot of other programs are giving, because I've coached people who have been in the same programs I've been in. So it's clearly not a skill thing in terms of that. It's more so the other programs don't put an emphasis on you becoming good at those things we just spoke about, leading to people getting very inconsistent results because they don't understand that the internal world is a bigger pillar, in my opinion, than the sales training you do itself. So they're missing out on the way someone's state should be on a sales call, what beliefs they should hold about themselves, how they should approach their goals, these things. And that means that they're just going to self-sabotage in some way, shape, or form.
Can you give us an example of that, the self-sabotage?
So let's say someone, like a closer who comes to me, they are unaware of the idea of extreme ownership and the benefits of that. Because a lot of people will say extreme ownership is a negative thing because it's like seems harsh. It seems like how is everything my fault and my responsibility? And they don't understand that they're looking at it from the wrong side of the tree, the wrong angle, right? Yeah. So that leads to them self-sabotaging because they're going to blame the environment and be like, it's bad leads, or my offer owner doesn't like me, and all these external things, meaning they take away control from themselves, which leads to self-sabotage. Because they're sabotaging themselves by taking away control.
Yeah.
So there's like a bunch of different things that people will do or not do, and it will self-sabotage them just because they're not aware of what it actually takes to win internally. They only think it comes down to training, which it doesn't.
Well, I mean, gaining discipline. I mean, I think that discipline and responsibility gives us a sense of freedom. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And like, how has the discipline, consistency, and ambition that you've had given yourself a sense of freedom throughout the years?
I think the biggest form of freedom I have is that I'm extremely confident that whatever I do, I will achieve. So that's the most freeing feeling in the world, because, you know, I feel like my word is iron. Like, if I say I'm going to do something, it happens. And the only thing that really puts people in prison or makes them not feel free is that they doubt their abilities.
Excellent. Now, you said that you went from $0 to $10,000 in your first 4 months, correct?
Yeah.
20,000 at 6 months and 45,000 at a year.
Yeah.
Okay. I know a lot of people in high ticket sales. None of them have come anywhere close to that. So how did you do it? What are some of the methods that you used?
I think there's a few things that go into it, but the biggest reasons I believe that I got there was, one, being a very good coachable student. Like, whoever is ahead of me, I will listen to you. And like, initially, I'll just act on what you do without questioning it. So I think a lot of people who are bad students actually ask too many questions. And I think it holds them back. So the way I view things is, if this person's ahead of me, I'm going to do as they say, then I'll question it later. So that's what I did with my first coach. I treated his word like gospel. He got me to 20K in 6 months because I listened to him. Yeah. And then after that, it was like, okay, I'm going to start questioning what he taught me and going to other coaches and seeing what they say, and then piecing together my own puzzle and my own framework and my own view on sales.
Okay, so do you consider yourself more of an autonomous learner now? Independent learner?
An independent learner.
Yeah.
I would say that it's a mix of both. I would say I'll question things myself and unpack whether what this person's telling me is true or not. Yeah. On reflection. So like, I'm very coachable. Like, I'm probably one of the most coachable people in the world, to be honest. I have no ego around learning from people, no matter if they're above me or below me. Like, financially, I'll learn from anyone. But I always question what they're saying and do my own reflection and feedback on that. I think that's the biggest reason I had success, because I was coachable, but feeding back on what they were saying and actually analysing whether I thought it was true or not. Because I'm not going to mention the name of the program, but the USP of the program that I was initially in is like the complete opposite to the way I view sales now. But I still got results with their method, but through analysis and feedback, I disagree with the framework.
Okay. One thing I'd like to talk about is networking, because I see you on Instagram and Facebook and YouTube all the time. So obviously, I'm guessing you're an extroverted person, and you can go out and meet people very fast and make friends with them, you know, win friends and influence people. So how has your network changed over the last year since you got into high ticket sales?
I don't believe in extrovert and introvert personally, because I would say if I was one, I would be more introverted than extroverted in a weird way.
Really?
So, yeah, first of all, I just feel like I'm comfortable making other people comfortable. So if I feel like the other person needs an extrovert to feel comfortable in the situation, I can flip myself into an extrovert.
Yeah.
And like if they don't need an extrovert and like they're sort of more chill with an introvert, I can flip myself into an introvert. So I'm more like, how will this person feel better by the way I act? And that's what I'll do.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. So let's say I'm on a date with a reserved girl, I'll be more extrovert to make her feel more comfortable, to like make the conversation flow.
Yeah.
But if I'm with someone who's very like extroverted, I might go more introverted to like find the balance.
So, yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah. And I have an interesting question here, because I'd like you to teach me something. And I think this is what a lot of sales professionals, when they start, experience. Now, during these interviews, I'm listening to what you're saying, but I'm thinking about the next question. And I think this happens with sales professionals when they're speaking with a prospect. The prospect is talking to them, but they're thinking about what they should say next. So how do you help a student get through that?
Presence, like presence skills, like listening to the other person before you think of a question, these things. Would you say?
Preparation?
Like having presence, so you're listening to the other person,
Yeah.
and then asking a question, versus like, oh, what question to ask next? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like anything, it takes discipline. You need to like, because most people are in a habit where they are doing that naturally, where they're like, oh, what should I say next?
Yeah.
So you need to have top of mind, I'm going to be fully present and only question what this person's saying. So the way I teach sales is more like, you're going to question based on the last thing they said and use actual language and data they used in that thing they said in your next question. So you have to listen to them, because you have to use what they said in that last sentence, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So like going off of a script in a word track, and more so finding the fault in what the other person's saying, or finding the problem in what they're saying. What does their sentence presuppose? You need to be present to do those things. So a big reason people, I think, do that is because they use a script.
Yeah.
You know, I threw away my script in 3 days of being on my first offer. I was just like, all the best people don't use it, so why am I going to use it?
How does a script hold a person back?
Because I feel like when people are using a script, they're not, like you said, listening to the person, and they're trying to funnel the person into their framework, or what the questions are, versus basically molding the conversation around the person. If that makes sense. Like if you're using your script and the prospect has to come to your script regardless of what they say, that's you saying that you're more important than the prospect, which doesn't make a sale. Yeah. It should be, okay, how are they coming to me? And I treat it more like a baseball player. Like, what ball are they throwing me and how am I going to hit it? Yeah. I'm not like forcing them to say certain things. I just want to see what they say and then help them align throughout the process.
Is that what a lot of people tend to do when they start out? They're trying to force their prospects to say something?
Yes.
So give me an example of that.
Like I get a lot of people who they'll get stuck on a fitness sales call because this person doesn't have like a insecurity around the way they look. They have bad health. But like they're only good at people who are bad with the way they look. So they're trying to force them down this path. Like, oh, I don't like the way they look, even though that's not the truth of the prospect, if that makes sense. So we've got like Granny who's 50 pounds overweight and has diabetes, and she doesn't care about the way she looks like fully. She's more cares about the health side. Yeah. But because this closer can only deal with prospects who don't like the way they look. They're trying to like be like questions around the way they look instead of this because they're more comfortable with this conversation.
That's got to be awkward.
Yeah, like I don't know. I think it's quite a selfish thing from closers as well. It's like it's not a. I think that we're here to serve, and I think that's another reason why I have my success, because I'm very ecological. Like even if it doesn't serve the person, I'm unselling them. You know, like you're not ready for this yet. You're not aligned for this yet. Your mindset's not in the right place to succeed with this yet. You're not coming in. But like most closers are so attached where they need the money, where they'll start being selfish and they won't be ecological.
And when they start thinking about themselves and the scarcity that they have, they can't think about the prospect.
Exactly.
And so they can't even help anyone.
Exactly.
Right? They have to help themselves before they can help anyone else.
Yes.
Yeah. Interesting. There's a lot of interesting topics that we're speaking about here.
Yeah.
And I think what's interesting is that when you see someone on social media all the time, which I see you popping up on my feed all the time, it's difficult to actually know that person. But speaking to you in person, I have a very different impression. But I think you seem to be very introspective, or at least very deep in your discussions. So what do your sales calls look like? I'm really curious, because this is a very interesting interview. So how does it differ when you're speaking with a prospect?
I think it's very similar. Like I'm very introspective, and I think that the reason that prospects are stuck is because they lack perspective. So the deeper perspectives I have on things, the more perspectives I can share with them that help them change. So my sales call is all about, like if I was to run you through what goes into the framework, does it logically make sense for the person to join the program? So if they want to lose 50 pounds, does the program help them lose 50 pounds? If yes, tick. Yeah. Is there an emotional gap? Is their current situation pain expanded on, future pace expanded on, consequence expanded on? If there's an emotional gap, they're ready because they got the fuel.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is their mindset aligned with who they need to be to get the outcome? So I'm only selling people who I think will succeed in the program. So a lot of people might just sell anyone, but if someone's giving me a bunch of limiting beliefs and not taking ownership, I don't see them being successful in the long run.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm not going to sell them. So if they have fears, they're not going to succeed. So I need to get rid of their fears. If they don't take ownership, they're not going to succeed because they're going to externalize again next time. The program didn't work because I didn't have the time. They'll use that same excuse on your program when they fail.
Yeah.
And then also, have they got limiting beliefs? So I don't like any limiting beliefs or negativity or things that doesn't serve the other person. I don't like that coming out of their mouth. So if someone's like, I can't do this because I went through menopause. Okay, menopause could make this more challenging, but that's not a beneficial way to view the situation. So I'll challenge them on that.
Yeah.
So I'll be like, okay, that could be true, but does it serve you to say that you can't do it because you're menopausal? Does that help you in any way? And obviously no. So I'm getting rid of their limiting beliefs all the time as well. So once their mindset's aligned, they're like the right driver for the vehicle makes sense to get them to their goal, and they got enough emotional fuel to get there, then I let them in.
That's a heck of a lot to do within, 1 hour?
Yeah.
Are you a one-call closer most of the time?
One call, and it's typically like 40 minutes.
Yeah. And so you've made $45,000 in a month. What were the prices of the tickets that you were selling, and what was the offer?
So I was managing a fitness team and taking some calls for them, and then also on a fitness offer as well.
Okay.
And the typical AOV for me was like $3,500.
Okay.
Dollars on a like 14 to 15% commission.
Okay, great. So you got into management before you got into coaching. That's interesting.
No, I had a few one-on-one clients that like led me into coaching, but I never did group coaching up to that point.
Okay. So you moved into management only after 1 year.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So let's move into leadership, because there's many different types of leadership. For example, there's the type of leadership that you might see in the military, which would be a little bit more on the authoritarian side. And then there's also leadership, which is more on the servant side.
Yeah.
So what kind of leadership do you have and do you demonstrate?
I think the leadership I have is I like people doing what I do, which is like taking accountability and asking themselves before they ask me. So even when I get a question on a sales call, I ask them not on a sales call, on a coaching call, I'll ask them what they think before I give them the answer.
Yeah.
So I'll be like, okay, what do you think about that? And then they'll tell me, and then they'll usually be right. That's the problem. But I want to drill into them that they know what to do. They don't need me there, but they just don't trust themselves enough yet.
It's almost like they're asking for permission, isn't it? To do what they need to do.
Yeah.
It's such a strange thing when I experience that too. I know I'm capable of something, but I'll reach out to my coach and ask them. And guess what the response I got last time was? You know what to do.
Yeah.
I know you know what to do, so just go out there and do it.
Yeah.
How do you get your students through that? Because some of them must be really stubborn and it must take a long time to push through.
So behind their behavior is a belief, because that's the way the world works. Like results came from behaviors. Behavior comes from beliefs or state. Yeah. So whenever they're not doing something whenever they're doing or not doing something that does or doesn't serve them, if I just ask them like what's behind the fact they're doing that, then we know what thought they've got that's holding them back. So let's say someone says, I'm really attached to the sale, and that's leading to me losing deals because I'm attached.
Yeah.
If I just ask them, okay, well, what do you think is causing you to be attached? That'll be their thoughts, right? They'll be like, well, I think that if I don't make this sale, then I can't pay my bills.
Yeah.
That'll be the thought that's holding them back. That will change their behavior if we can change the way they look at the thought. So a lot of my coaching, when it comes to things that are like sabotaging them, it's more getting them to look inside and ask themselves why they're doing what they're doing, and then reframe it, like look at it from a different way that does serve them.
It's interesting because I've heard about this a lot, and I've tried to do the same thing with myself. So I've tried journaling, I've tried affirmations, hanging around people that are a lot more successful than me and more competent than me. I found that to be helpful. But most of all, it seems that the words that we feed ourselves turns us into who we are, almost like the term "you are what you eat."
Yeah.
So I had a question at the tip of my tongue, forgot what it was. But anyways, so what are some things that you do on a constant basis to keep yourself in a positive mindset when it comes to sales?
In general, I think it's, once again, I think it's Wayne Dyer who has this quote that if you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. And it's like one of my, like that's literally the quote that keeps me in a positive state all the time, because everything is a story, and stories are always subjective. Like they're not usually, like there's always different angles. Even like a law case, right? There's always different angles because one person's arguing one side, the other's arguing the other. It's different stories.
Yeah.
So whenever something happens on a sales call, what happens to me in life, if I change the way I look at it into a positive way of looking at it that serves me, I'll always be in a positive state.
Yeah.
So it's always just what's going on and what's the meaning I'm putting on it. Because some people could break up with their girlfriend and cry and lay in bed all day, and that's fine, like if you want to do that. But personally, for me, I just know that it's because I'm thinking about myself as, oh, I'm not good enough or something like this, and that makes me cry. Or there'll never be someone like her, it makes me cry. But me, if that situation happens to me, it's more like, okay, how can I look at this in a way that's going to serve me in the future?
Yeah.
Well, I can look at it as she wasn't the right person for me, and this is going to give me all the fuel in the world to become the person she's going to miss out on. You know, that fuels me up. So it's all about finding stories that give you fuel and not taking power away from yourself.
So it seems like you're able to reframe things on the fly.
It's like it comes in this ear. If I get a negative thought, it's gone.
But how do you do that? What type of training do you receive?
It's awareness. It's like, I don't think I needed training for that. It's having the discipline and awareness and knowing when you have thoughts that don't serve you. So I was naturally doing it, but I do know what goes into it. If you have a certain emotion, it's because you're feeling your thinking. You're only feeling your thinking. You don't feel, that's the only thing that can make you feel a certain way. If you think something scary, you're going to feel scared.
Yeah.
Something like this. So whenever you have a negative emotion, don't just be like, oh, I feel angry. It's like, okay, why do I feel angry? Change the meaning you're putting on it.
So you're using a very specific method to reframe your thought patterns.
Yes.
And you seem to do it immediately. Do you think that anyone can learn this?
I think yes. I think people don't want to believe they can because it sounds too simple.
Is this something you teach your students as well? How to reframe their thinking process?
It's something that they learn over time, like from being around me. Because every time they give me something negative, it's like getting reframed and I make them do it themselves. So I definitely have people who go through my internal process of like basically all my views on the world.
Yeah.
They learn the way I view it. They put themselves through questions and they learn this skill over time. I'm not going to say 100% of people learn it, but people definitely have developed the ability to do the same thing, yes.
So it's almost like they're becoming metacognizant, aware of their thought processes.
Yeah.
And it's a little bit difficult to go through, I think, because I've experienced that before, and sometimes it's a little bit scary to examine our own negative thought patterns because we resist change. And I'm sure you've seen that with prospects too, on calls, that they resist change. So what are some things that you do on sales calls which helps a person get over their fears of change?
I think the only reason someone's too scared to change is because they either don't believe they can, if they change, they get the outcome, or they don't actually see the problem as big enough to change. So the only thing that would really solve someone not wanting to change because it's too scary is expanding the gap on the emotion and making them realize it's scarier to stay the same, or helping them get over the fact that they are capable of achieving the goal.
All right, let's move into objection handling. Everyone's favorite topic.
Okay.
So what type of framework or methodology do you have regarding that? You don't have to give up too much, right? Because you guys got to check out his program in the comment section down below. But
Yeah.
let's hear a little bit of it.
It's funny because that's why I said that my methodology is completely different. Because when I was closing at that like 45K month and I was closing at such a high rate, it would only be like 1 out of 10 calls that I closed would be an objection. Because I would only pitch people who I knew wouldn't give me an objection for alignment.
Okay, so you understood before the pitch almost what the objections were going to be, in a way?
I understand who this person needs to be and what needs to be in place before I pitch them to not get an objection. And I also understand that if I do get an objection, it's only because one of these things wasn't in place. So all I'm doing is, if I get an objection, it's because I didn't align something upstream. I'm aligning them. I'm not like trying to pre-handle or do anything like this. I'm just aligning this person with who I know they need to be to get the outcome. And I will only pitch them when I'm certain that they are.
Because it sounds to me that there's a lot of deep psychology behind this. Like, is it very complex to actually implement in real time?
I don't think so, no. Okay. I think it's quite simple, actually. And the reason I thought this way about it is because I think high ticket sales is extremely different to traditional sales. Like, it's different to selling a window, something like this. And I mainly looked up to people like Tony Robbins, who influenced my sales process a lot. And when I learned NLP and hypnosis, these things went more into like my sales process. And what things really drive humans, it's emotions, beliefs, mindset, these things, you know?
Yeah.
Like, those are the things that's going to influence change. So you can tell when someone's going to be ready to change based on their language and things, because they'll say certain things that's obviously going to mean that they're not going to change. So if they're saying, like, I just want to lose 10 pounds, right now they're minimizing the goal, which means they don't view it as a big problem, which means they're not going to change because it's not a big problem to them. You know?
Yeah.
So you can get them to a place where they're aligned to become that person and then pitch them.
So you really pick up on language patterns that they're using.
Yes. It's like, but the only reason I can do that is because when they say certain things that don't align with my internal world, it's like an instant red flag. Okay. So like when a student can't pick up on things I'm picking up on, it's only because their internal world's not the same as mine yet.
Yeah.
Because it might sound like arrogant, but like I'm extremely confident I can achieve whatever I want in the world, right? So I think that my internal world, personally, is built for competition and success.
Yeah.
Therefore, if this person and what they're saying is a representation of their internal world, if that doesn't align with mine, and mine's the most competition-based one there is, I can't let them like speak to themselves like that or say things like that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's sort of a natural feeling when they're talking to me on whether they're going to win or not.
Because I get on sales calls and I'm currently on a fitness offer, and oftentimes when I'm speaking to people, I'm picking up their language patterns now as well.
Yeah.
Because it's a habit. And it frustrates me because I constantly hear, I don't want to take responsibility for myself. I don't want to take responsibility for myself. And immediately I start, I'm not helping them get over their limiting beliefs. What I'm doing is I'm kind of attempting to teach them, and I think it comes across as a lecture and pushes them away.
Yeah.
So what's a piece of advice you could give me regarding that so that I don't push them away and I help them get through there?
Give me an example of a limiting belief.
Well, something which they'll say, they'll constantly minimize their pain. So it's mobility training. So we're talking about, we'll say people in their 50s, like a woman in her mid 50s, and she'll say like, I have this injury, and that injury. And then all of a sudden they'll say, yeah, but it's not a big deal. I can walk around. I just can't go hiking. Right. And so I have to go in there and say, well, okay, but you said before you're experiencing all these injuries, right? But you're saying it's not a big deal. Are you sure you're not minimizing this? And then sometimes I will get, like, there will be a friction created, which I don't want to create. I'm trying to help them get through it. But I just don't know how to navigate that.
Okay. Two things. I'll say how to navigate it second. But first, I don't think that resistance is a bad thing on a sales call. I think that's what's needed.
Okay.
Because often the resistance point and the thing that the person doesn't want to talk about, doesn't want to open up on, or like if there's resistance when you're reframing someone, that's the thing they need to push through to get their outcome. Usually when I like have resistance, I love it because I know it's needed. It's going to be somewhere in the call, whether it's now or at the end.
Yeah.
So when I can push through resistance, usually as long as I get through it and they like come out the other side of it, that's a closed deal for me usually. But how to deal with someone like that, specifically, if they're minimizing consistently, I would just be very unattached and just keep probing into it, like getting into the specifics. Okay, so, well, if you, wait, what was the original pain point you said?
They were minimizing a lot of what they experienced. They had a lot of pain and they had injuries, but then they said, oh, but it's not a big deal.
Okay. So typically if someone like doesn't want to go down here and says painful, if you can understand what they want, that's the pain. So if you understand what they want and take it away from them, then that's the pain, if that makes sense. So if you're like, okay, so what do you really want to gain from getting rid of these injuries? Oh, well, I want to go hiking. Okay, what else? And then like usually like I'll just stick on like what else until they give me some more. And then I'll be like, okay, so what is it like for you knowing that you're missing out on all these things in life because of your injuries? And that's the pain of the now, if that makes sense.
Do you think that they don't realize how big their pain is and they need to be made aware of it? Or is it just that they know?
I think so.
Yeah.
I'm very big on the idea that even if a prospect comes in like bawling out their problems, that's what they're aware of.
Yeah.
So that awareness that they've got now isn't necessarily beneficial. It just means they're super aware and not done anything about it.
Yeah.
So in any call, whether they're being shallow with their responses or extremely deep, the whole goal is to go more aware on the problem than they currently are. If that makes sense.
It's pretty complicated to me because I have not been in closing yet. So this is all brand new.
Okay.
And it does seem complex.
Yeah.
However, I think that when you study it repeatedly, you start to see the patterns over and over again.
So I'll give you an example to make it make sense. So someone could get on a sales call to someone like the resistant prospect you said, who says, I just want to go hiking, right? And that could be viewed as like a bad answer in a closer's eyes because right now it's a very shallow response. But also someone who comes on the call and you ask him one question, he's like, well, I hate the way I look, I can't have sex with my wife, I can't play with my kids. That's technically still not a good answer either because that's what they're aware of regardless. Whether it's really shallow or really deep, that's what they're aware of. And that awareness they've got hasn't been enough to help them change. So for this person, you need to take them down here and this person, you need to take them down here. But either way, you've got to go more deep no matter what their response is. Because their current way of viewing it, even if it's really bad or really good, hasn't been enough to drive change, so you need to bring more awareness.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's a little bit on the complex side for me,
Okay.
but I'm getting pieces of it, definitely.
Okay.
And I think that this is something that will take me time to wrap my head around.
Yeah.
But I'm also excited to go into it because the way I review my calls right now, I'm a setter and I go through the audio, closing my eyes, and listening to my own tonality, the tonality of the other person, and then I go through it separately with just the transcript. And when I'm going through the transcript, I started to pick up on certain language patterns. And I started to notice the minimizing, also the lack of responsibility, and I would write down, okay, what is a different question I could have asked here? And there's a lot of things happening in a conversation, a lot of nuanced things that we might not know as it's happening, right? So what are some things that you picked up on? How did your conversations change the more you learned about sales? Because you must have picked up on so many new things in conversations the better you got.
I think that, how did they change? I think that when I did more reps, I had a more broad range of questions I could ask people, and I became less of a one-trick pony, I guess you could say, because
Okay.
I'd be more fluid in like what I want to ask people. I'm not 100% sure on how they changed. I think just over time I realized what really went into a sale, and then that therefore changed my process. Because I think a lot of people don't even know what goes into a sale in a high ticket sales call, and they're just winging it. They're just pitching
Yeah.
because they want to pitch, not because they know that the person's ready to be pitched. So I think that the way my conversation changed was more so I started getting to the point where I was more mature, in my opinion, about my sales process, where it's like,
Yeah.
the sale isn't made, I'm not going to pitch. I know that if someone doesn't have a strong why, they're not going to join the program at the end. So why am I going to pitch them?
Interesting. And there's some people that are just all about always be closing, and they'll try and close anyone,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. Okay. So I'm interested in what your plans are what your plans are in the future. Like what's in the future for Daniel Smyth?
So I think I'm going to be a sales coach for the next 3 to 4 years. But my big passion is really the portion of helping usually men more so.
Yeah.
I want more men to view the world the same way as me because I think it's the most beneficial way to live. And I think there's something that's being lost in today's society, like the competitive edge, the need to be more, the want to help your family, the want to be a good fucking father, husband, partner, all these things. So sales is ultimately just a tool for me to learn how to coach more people into the mindset part of things. But with my program, the goal is to scale it to one of the biggest program in the sales space. So we're going for 7th level.
Okay.
Yeah. And then I also want to open up boxing gyms here. I want to open up bars here. I want to build a good foundations in Paraguay as well.
That's really interesting, man. You're very ambitious. I definitely admire that. I think that the way that you speak definitely is a reflection of your mindset. And you're right. A lot of younger men need that, and they don't. That's a rabbit hole we could go into. We could go really deep into.
Yeah.
I mean, for example, there's Dr. Jordan Peterson, who was kind of really the first guy to really bring it up online for it to really blow up. And they're like, okay, maybe there's a crisis of masculinity here, or maybe there's a crisis, and young men don't really know who to look up to, and so they're just finding social media stars.
Yeah.
So, do you want to get into that a little bit? What happened? What changed? Why are young men looking, or just why are they having such a difficult time finding role models?
I will answer from my personal experience first why that's my like big driver in life.
Yeah.
And that's because, and not that my dad's a bad dad, because I love my dad, but when I was probably around 13, I looked at my dad and I was thinking, would I want his life? And the answer is no.
Yeah.
And I would say that me and my dad are like polar opposites in everything.
Yeah.
So like his ambition's lower than mine, all these things. So when I seen that, it was like, okay, why don't I want to be like him? And then it was because of all these things that were unmasculine.
Yeah.
And then I found Andrew Tate.
Yeah.
So Andrew Tate's probably the biggest role model for me in my life, to be honest. Especially when you don't just get the short form, like, you know, viral parts of him, but actually sit down and listen to his ideology. I think it makes a lot of sense, and it's actually, in my opinion, my truth that I live by. Why have people lost their masculine edge? I think there's so many things that go into that, and it would get like political and things like this.
Yeah.
But it's a tough one. If we speak it for like 2 hours, we could.
Yeah, I know. We would get. That's why I said it's a deep rabbit hole.
Yeah, because I could be like instantly like, oh well, certain movements that the government have promoted have led to men losing their edge. Like,
yeah,
I could say things that are extremely controversial, like women's rights play a factor into men losing their masculine edge. Like things like this all play a big factor.
It seems to me like you're more concerned with just helping the men get through.
For women as well, though.
Okay.
Because I think the way society used to be was that way for a reason for a very long time, and then all of a sudden things changed. And I don't know if it's for the better or the worse. In my opinion, it's for the worse. But I think that women need strong men. So I'm doing it for the men, but also I'm very driven by the woman as well. So it's like, I think that it's beneficial for the men to live this way because it's going to be beneficial for the women to have that sort of man in their life as well.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of men who are successful, but they're also like degenerate in other aspects, like in the way they treat their women and things, in my opinion. So just because a man is competent and successful doesn't mean he's a good man for his partner as well. So that's a big problem too.
Yeah. This brings back a lot of memories for me because, I mean, in the past 3 years, I've been following a lot of the same stuff that you have.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe different social media, I don't know if I would say stars, but figures.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, a lot of the same stuff, which has been popular over the last number of years. But let me find another good one here. I got all my questions written down on my iPad. This is, as my first in-person podcast, I think this is pretty damn good.
Yeah,
I mean, what do you think about it?
I like it.
It's fun, especially because we got the Born to Close right there. This is a great spot.
Yeah.
This is the mark of, I got ambitions too, man. Going to be bigger than Joe Rogan.
We should bring that question up about the woman on the round table, like the men losing their masculine thing in the round table.
Oh yeah, actually, there's going to be a roundtable meeting coming up with a bunch of high-ticket closers, with a bunch of high-ticket sales professionals, coaches, obviously, Daniel, managers, etc. And we're going to talk about a lot of issues. And I think what's so interesting about successful high-ticket sales professionals is that they overcame a lot of inner demons in order to bring themselves to where they are.
Yeah.
And I encounter this on a constant basis with my own inner demons, and I'm always working on them, trying to be disciplined and improve my competency. But I have noticed with so many people that first come in, both men and women, into high-ticket sales, their negative view on themselves is so intense. And now I realize why personal development is so important in order for them to advance in their career. Yeah. All right. Here's a controversial one. What do you think are the biggest problems high-ticket closers have when they're starting new offers?
I think the problem starts from the jump, like I mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
Like they've only jumped on an offer because they want an offer, not because it's aligned with what they want.
Yeah.
So the problems start instantly. I think that another big problem that most closers have is they get on an offer and they think it's like a whole new ball game. So like they go from selling fitness to e-com, for example, and they like overcomplicate and overthink, like I've never sold e-com before. But really the same thing goes into making the sale. Like it's the same human transformation process, as I call it. The same thing that helps this person get out of the way is still emotion, logic, mindset.
Yeah.
No matter what you sell, if you can find those things and help people like get over them and build the problems, find the problems, build gaps, it's the same thing you're selling every single time.
Yeah. And what about team dynamics? Because oftentimes I've heard of poor onboarding processes. I've heard of course, sales representatives that won't take responsibility for the problems they experience. Collaboration and teamwork is so important. So what recommendations would you have for a sales professional when it comes to choosing their offer?
That comes down, I can give my own answer for me personally. That comes down to the person on the other end of on the whoever's listening, to be honest. Because for me, like, teamwork wasn't a huge thing for me. Like, I was on a huge team,
Yeah.
but like, I didn't need people patting my back all the time and messaging me. Like,
Yeah.
I wanted an offer that had reps, I had opportunity, I knew I could make money, and I went and did it. So if you feel like you would want to be in a team where there is an environment, make sure to ask those questions on the interview. Like, what's your what's your team like? Like, do you all role play with each other? Do you have team meetings? Do you jump on calls? Do you message each other in private and do events and things like this? Like, ask those questions if that's what you value.
Yeah.
But for me, picking an offer, all I value is, does what I'm selling resonate with me? So
Okay.
like, does it feel good to sell this thing for me? And can I make the money I want to make and have the impact I want to have on this offer? That's all I really care about.
Yeah.
So once again, it comes down to what are your values, and then asking questions in the interview process to see if it matches them.
Yeah.
So it's very hard to give like a straight answer because everyone's values are different.
Do you coach your students in your high ticket sales school how to find good offers?
I personally don't, but my business partner Jack does. And of course, I have some advice I can give on it, but Jack's way better at the offer side of things than me, because with me, you could view it as luck, but obviously I think that I earned it. But with me, I killed the offers and I was posting about my results, and I never had to go out and hunt for an offer.
Yeah.
I was more like, people knew me, so they'd send me offers.
Yeah.
But Jack, on the other hand, had to hunt, so he's way better at that than me.
All right, so we're going to have Jack on our next podcast episode.
Yeah, offer hunting is his thing. Mine's the skills.
Yeah,
The mindset.
awesome. So you have a number of business partners right now. I think you have a video editor. You have Jack. How big is your team?
5.
5?
Yeah.
How big is it gonna be?
Nah, lean, mean A players is what we want.
Lean, mean A players.
Yeah, so I'd imagine like 20 maximum to do $1 million a month.
How do you choose people that work for you?
We choose based on, are they aligned with us in terms of our beliefs, values, and characteristics? Are they willing to put in the work? So my video editor, Georgie, that you met, he joined my program in December to do closing, and he didn't have the money to do the full amount, but I let him in anyway because I could tell he was hungry.
Yeah.
And 2-3 months later, we're like, okay, we need someone to come and edit for us and live with us. We're going to pay for their flights, buy them a laptop, do all the work with us. Who do we want? And we instantly didn't think who's skilled, who has the most capabilities with editing. We didn't ask any of those questions. We just thought, who do we think is hungry enough to go to war with us and help us win? And he came to mind because he fits the mold.
Fits the mold.
So we care only hiring based on who you are, not the skills you have, because we can give you skills. It's easy.
Got it. And now there is one question I'd like to ask you in terms of your school. Mm-hmm. Because there's a lot of people watching this right now, and a lot of people that'll be seeing your shorts and watching through this full interview. And they're probably going to want to know, well, how am I going to make it into this guy's school? Because he has expectations. So what characteristics and what type of attitude are you looking for in a student?
Mm-hmm. I have a triangle of success that me, Reese, and Jack sat down and analysed what goes into the most successful people. And as long as someone comes to me aligning with this triangle, I'm willing to let them in the program. So if they take extreme ownership over their situation, everything's their fault and responsibility, and not because I'm a prick, but because it helps you to take control and empowerment and say it's my fault, because now you can actually change something. Extreme ownership, all empowering beliefs, and raw action is the keys. So if someone's going to take action, they have good belief system, they take ownership, I'm happy to let them in.
Awesome. So, how can people get a hold of you on social media?
So people can contact me on Instagram, is probably the best place. I also have a free school group, which people can check out, which has a 10-hour video course, and also YouTube and Facebook. But I'd say YouTube and Instagram and the school group is the best.
Great. And anyone that I come across that aligns with those values, I'm going to send them over to you.
Okay.
Daniel, it was so great to sit down and talk with you about this. I think we've been doing this for about an hour. First in-person podcast ever. I think it was pretty damn good.
It's good, mate. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Great to have you on.
Cheers.
Okay.